Okay, so I'm going to welcome everybody to uh, Saturday Night Live again from New York. I'm just a small town girl, right, Jonathan? And so I had a lot of fun with this. I need some fun. And I hope that you will have some fun with it too. I Googled Prometheus Bound to see what would happen and what would come up. And it was pretty amazing. So I'm sharing some of what I found there because I know we all have an idea of what Prometheus Bound is about. We actually studied it in our Sunday classes throughout the fall, and it's hugely influential. And sometimes you don't realize the scope and the reach of some of these ideas. So I'd like to reflect that. And maybe by the end of today's presentation, you'll come up with the third trilogy for Prometheus Unbound today, what it would look like if we gave the wheel another spin, right? Because Prometheus Bound was part of a trilogy, and we have the first one intact and only snippets from the other two plays of Aeschylus. And what Shelley did, which was so bold and genius, is to imagine what it would be like to continue. What would the trilogy look like as an artist and as a poet, no less. So I highly recommend reading this because it's some of the finest prose that you'll ever read. He had such a genius command of the language. So now, Prometheus Unbound, Reflections on the Poem by Percy Bysshe Shelley. Who is Percy Bysshe Shelley? For theosophists, it's interesting. You can see his birth date here, 1792 to 1822. So this is leading up to HPB's time. He unfortunately passed at an early age of 30, but he was brilliant. He was regarded as one of the major English Romantic poets. And he's been described as a superb craftsman, a lyric poet without rival, and surely one of the most advanced skeptical intellects ever to write a poem. A radical in his poetry as well as in his political and social views, Shelley did not achieve fame during his lifetime, but recognition of his achievements in poetry grew steadily following his death, and he became an important influence on subsequent generations of poets, including Browning, Swinburne, Hardy, and Yeats. Okay. And who was he married to? Mary Shelley, the author of Frankenstein. Let me move this out of the way a little. Shelley and other Romantic poets also at times did more than just write about their beliefs. He advocated these ideas in his writings, which in his time was a provocative and courageous act. You could be arrested for sedition or worse. While he was a student at Oxford, he collaborated on a pamphlet titled The Necessity of Atheism, and he sent copies to all the college authorities and every bishop in the Church of England. He was expelled from the university as a result, and his father was not a happy camper. In terms of his views, Shelley was an avowed atheist. His atheism was an important element of his political radicalism, as he saw organized religion as inextricably linked to social oppression. His early pamphlet, The Necessity of Atheism, was withdrawn from sale soon after publication following a complaint from a priest. His poem, Queen Mab, which includes sustained attacks on the priesthood, Christianity, and religion in general, was twice prosecuted by the Society for the Suppression of Vice in 1821. A number of his other works were edited before publication to reduce the risk of prosecution. In terms of nonviolence, Shelley's advocacy of nonviolent resistance was largely based on his reflections on the French Revolution and the rise of Napoleon, and his belief that violent protest would increase the prospect of a military despotism. Although Shelley sympathized with supporters of Irish independence, he did not support violent rebellion. In his early pamphlet, An Address to the Irish People, he wrote, "I do not wish to see things changed now because it cannot be done without violence, and we may assure ourselves that none of us are fit for any change, however good, if we condescend to employ force in a cause we think right." In his later essay, A Philosophical View of Reform, Shelley did concede that there were political circumstances in which force might be justified. The last resort of resistance is undoubtedly insurrection. The right of insurrection is derived from the employment of armed force to counteract the will of the nation. Shelley supported the 1820 armed rebellion against absolute monarchy in Spain and the 1821 armed Greek uprising against Ottoman rule. Shelley's poem, The Mask of Anarchy, written in 1819, so it's about 200 years ago, there's a cycle for you, but first published in 1832, has been called perhaps the first modern statement of the principle of nonviolent resistance. Gandhi was familiar with the poem, and it is possible that Shelley had an indirect influence on Gandhi through Henry David Thoreau's Civil Disobedience. Vegetarianism. Shelley converted to a vegetable diet in 1812 and sustained it with occasional lapses for the remainder of his life. Shelley's vegetarianism was influenced by ancient authors such as Hesiod, Pythagoras, Socrates, Plato, Ovid, and Plutarch. Shelley wrote 2 essays on vegetarianism, and his advocacy of vegetarianism was strikingly modern, emphasizing its health benefits, the alleviation of animal suffering, the inefficient use of agricultural land involved in animal husbandry, and the economic inequality resulting from the commercialization of animal food production. Shelley's life and works inspired the founding of the Vegetarian Society in England and directly influenced the vegetarianism of George Bernard Shaw and perhaps even Gandhi. Free love. Shelley's advocacy of free love drew heavily on the work of Mary Wollstonecraft and the early work of William Godwin. In his notes to Queen Mab, he wrote, "A system could not well have been devised more studiously hostile to human happiness than marriage." He argued that children of unhappy marriages are nursed in a systematic school of ill humor, violence, and falsehood. He believed that the ideal of chastity outside marriage was a monkish and evangelical superstition which led to hypocrisy, prostitution, and promiscuity. Shelley believed that sexual connection should be free among those who loved each other and last only as long as their mutual love. Love should also be free and not subject to obedience, jealousy, and fear. He denied that free love would lead to promiscuity and the disruption of stable human relationships, arguing that relationships based on love would generally be of long duration and marked by generosity and self-devotion. So, to also contextualize this, Prometheus, Unbound is a romantic poem in the modern sense of love and romance. and in relation to the Romantic movement, which had more to do with whimsy and creative passion. Shelley was a member of the second generation of British Romantic poets, along with his friends John Keats and Lord George Gordon Byron, who followed the first generation of Romantic poets, including William Blake, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, and William Wordsworth. The Romantic movement in poetry came about in large part as a reaction to the Industrial Revolution and the emphasis on coal efficiency that followed. This shows clearly in the themes and references used by the writers, especially of this second generation. Now, Prometheus Unbound is a lyrical drama in 4 acts written by Shelley, published in 1820. The work, considered Shelley's great masterpiece, was a reply to Aeschylus' Prometheus Bound, in which the Titan Prometheus stole fire from heaven to give to mortals and was punished by Zeus, Jupiter. So Aeschylus wrote a trilogy on Prometheus, and this was thereabouts. It was an ancient Greek tragedy that they estimate sometime between 479 BC or 424. In the tragedy, Prometheus, a Titan, a giant, who defies Zeus and protects and gives fire to mankind, for this kindness in protecting mankind, as Zeus was about to get rid of humanity, he just didn't think it was worth it to continue with them. And for this, he was subjected to the wrath of Zeus and punished. Harrington considers it certain that the author, in his view, Aeschylus, did not mean for Prometheus Bound to be a self-contained dramatic unity, and suggests that most modern students of the subject would probably agree that Prometheus Bound was followed by a work with the title Prometheus Laomenes, or Prometheus Unbound. And he adds that some very slight evidence indicates that Prometheus Unbound may have been followed by a third play, Prometheus Pyrphoros, Prometheus the Fire-Bearer. The latter two survive only in fragments. Since the final 2 dramas of the trilogy have been lost, the author's intention for the work as a whole is not known. But according to Desmond Conacher, the majority of classical scholars still accept the Aeschylean authorship of the play. This was not questioned in antiquity, but West, following the detailed work by Mark Griffith, argues that the evidence against the Aeschylean authorship of the Prometheus is now overwhelming. So the verdict's out on that. So again, Prometheus Unbound occurs in 4 acts. So briefly, and I hope you get a chance to read it yourselves over the summer. In the first act, Prometheus the Titan is bound to a rock. When morning dawns, Prometheus cries out against the monarch of gods and demons, who is Jupiter. As the hawks begin to tear at his flesh for the day, he recounts his suffering and claims that he is greater than Jupiter. The earth commiserates with him against Jupiter's tyranny. She tells him that there are 2 realities, the current reality and the shadow reality. Prometheus summons the phantasm of Jupiter to restate his curse and then repents. But Mercury, the messenger god, arrives with words from Jupiter and the Furies. He tells Prometheus that Jupiter has willed a new punishment for Prometheus. Mercury offers him pity, but reminds him that he has to oppose him because Prometheus opposed Jupiter. Mercury asks Prometheus to reveal the secret that he alone knows, the fate of Jupiter, but Prometheus refuses, even when Mercury offers him freedom and exaltation. Thunder rolls and Mercury leaves. The Furies begin torturing Prometheus by telling him that they attack humankind. For the champion of humankind, this is a great blow indeed, but Prometheus accepts it as part of his martyrdom. He reflects that even though he would never want to be immortal, there is a promise of peace with death. Spirits come and speak to Prometheus, proclaiming that he will quell this horseman grim because of his secret knowledge. The second act. In the second act, Oceanid Asia summons her sister Panthea. They talk about life since Prometheus' fall. They discuss dreams, and when the echoes arrive, they follow when beckoned. The echoes promise that if they do, an unspoken voice will wake in an unknown world. They arrive in a forest among spirits and fauns. From there, they are sent to the cave of the Demogorgon, Jupiter's son, where Asia questions the Demogorgon about the world's creator. The Demogorgon answers that God created everything, both good and bad. Asia demands the Demogorgon provide her with a name for God. They talk about how Jupiter rules the universe and how Prometheus gave humans fire, mining knowledge, speech, science, and medicine. Asia asks when Prometheus will be freed. The cave opens and Demogorgon leaves on his chariot. The hours come to transport Asia and Panthea. On this journey to a mountaintop, Asia undergoes a change that reveals to her that it is through her love that she discovers paradise. The summary of Act 3. And this is where Act 3 takes place, in heaven. Jupiter and the other gods hold court, and Jupiter claims to have conquered everything but the soul of man. He speaks of the rise of Demogorgon, who appears then, and says he is eternity, Jupiter's child, and therefore more powerful than the sky god. At first, Jupiter seeks eternity's mercy, saying that not even Prometheus would make him suffer. When eternity does not answer, Jupiter attacks him. However, the elements will not help Jupiter. He falls. Ocean and Apollo talk about Jupiter's fall. Hercules frees Prometheus, who thanks him. He tells Asia there is a cave where they can be with one another for all time. Earth describes death to Asia, who does not understand at first because she is immortal. Earth summons a spirit to guide Prometheus, Asia, and their friends to a temple that was once dedicated to worshiping Prometheus, and tells them that they can live there in that cave. When they arrive, the hours tell them that since Jupiter's fall, mankind is free. They have abandoned their thrones and live peacefully, but not without passion. In Act 4, the spirits of the dead hours and the human mind rejoice over the peace brought about by the end of Jupiter's tyranny. Panthea and Ione describe a chariot with a winged infant, the spirit of earth. The earth and moon sing together about the peace and freedom mankind is now experiencing, and how there are no secrets left hidden from them. Humans even control the lightning. The Demogorgon appears and speaks at the end of Prometheus Unbound to laud Prometheus' victory. Prometheus Unbound deals with the aftermath of Prometheus stealing fire from the gods and giving it to humans. Shelley was inspired to write Prometheus Unbound by the classical trilogy of plays known as Promethea, written by Aeschylus during the height of ancient Greek power. The great difference between the two works is that in Aeschylus' work, Prometheus and Zeus reconcile. They do not in Shelley's work. Prometheus Unbound is what is known as a closet drama. That is, Shelley never intended it to be performed on stage. It was meant to be performed with the use of the imagination in the reader's mind's eye. So I, as I said before, collected artwork and other and music, etc., that have been influenced by Prometheus Bound and Prometheus Unbound. So I'll start out with some images that depict Prometheus Bound, and then we'll progress through to the Unbound images. So I'll pause for a few seconds so you can take in the image. Statue. While we're on the subject of the liver, there are health-giving functions of the liver. It's actually quite a powerful organ, and you see it lit up there. The liver performs 500 functions that help keep the body healthy. That is the most of any organ in the body. Although the primary function of the liver in the human body is to filter and detoxify the blood, it has other roles as well. The liver also manufactures critical hormones and proteins, produces bile for the digestive system, and stores certain nutrients. And not only does it clean the blood, the liver can regenerate itself. The heart can't do that, right? Can the function of our liver be affected by our spiritual tendencies or the lack of regulating our system consciously? Just a question. Here's an image of this sort of Egyptian Prometheus. The bird looks a lot friendlier here. Here's a sort of modern version. Yeah, and Kuan Yin came to me, came to my thoughts as I was looking at Prometheus Bound. When you think of the Kuan Yin pledge, never will I seek nor receive private individual salvation, never will I enter into final peace alone, but forever and everywhere will I live and strive for the redemption of every creature throughout the world from the bonds of conditioned existence. To me, that's remarkably similar to the Promethean situation. The Lotus Sutra also confirms with vivid examples that Avalokiteshvara can manifest in any form, male or female, young or old, spirit or animal, as the situation calls for. Devotees traditionally might translate that one who hears the cries, or as Guan Yin, one who hears the cries of the world. Just like Prometheus, listening to the cries of the world. Is his Asia an allusion to Kuan Yin? And here, when we look at Kuan Yin, you see, at her feet, the serpents, right? Which is, she's containing them, if you will. And she also hears the cries of the world. And she doesn't enter into a final peace alone. But Prometheus couldn't do that either. He wanted to uplift humanity. Here's an image of the hawk or the vulture. This is titled Prometheus Bound. A little bit gory, but another Prometheus Bound artwork. Oh, let's go back. This one, this sketch, I think, is really beautiful because now this bird, doesn't it look like it's coming from a different place? Is it a divine intervention? Now here's one. Prometheus bound and unbound. One of the contributions, we might say, of Shelley in his views was that of evolutionary spiritual progression, as opposed to damnation. Here's a sort of modern Prometheus. I like this one a lot. If you look closely at it, you can see it's sort of a cycle. And you see the taking on the burdens of the world, a descent and an ascension. It's more integrated. And I think this one is one of my favorites because there's it looks like a sunflower to me, or a sun. And as opposed to attacking, a bird attacking, it's as if the sun is healing. Here's an image of Prometheus breaking free of the chains of servitude, which Shelley was opposed to, servitude. We might think of what binds us in servitude today. What are our chains composed of? In our thoughts, in our actions. Here's a Prometheus Unbound, right here in New York at Rockefeller Center. Happy. Here's a statue in Houston of Prometheus Unbound. Now here's Prometheus Unbound, and it's a whole album of music. And I started to listen to it. And one of the things with listening to the music, there are several pieces. Franz Liszt wrote a piece called Prometheus Unbound. It's 18 minutes long. I won't play that one for you. But with all of the music that I've heard, the musical interpretation of Prometheus Unbound, one of the things that you hear in the beginning is this rhythm, which would be the hawk attacking his liver. And then slowly towards the end, by Act 4, there's euphoria, there's spiritual euphoria, and the music follows that pattern. Now here, we're going to try and see if this works. Hope so. All right, here we go. Whoops, we go back. Go back. All right, now. All right.
You can tell us whose voice we're listening to?
This is Vincent Price.
We see the PowerPoint. You have to switch to your screen if you want to show the video.
What?
You have to share your computer screen, not just the PowerPoint, if you want to switch to the video.
Okay, I thought I was sharing. Okay, so I have to stop the share? Or do you want me to just
Because right now you're sharing just your PowerPoint.
So what should she do?
Okay, I tried to share what you showed me to download, and that's not working, right?
Go to share screen and share your computer screen.
I think we have to share, let's see. Okay, hold on. Gotta close this out.
Like me to try to play the video from my computer? I downloaded them.
Yeah, let me, hold on just one sec, okay? All right. So I'm gonna share my screen and do it this way, okay? Wait, tell me when you see it.
Yeah.
We can see it.
Okay, now I'm going to, yeah.
Great.
Okay. Yep.
Okay, let me know if you can hear it.
No.
You can't hear it?
Not yet.
Rewind it.
Oh, I'll tell you why. Because when you when you share the screen, you have to share the computer sound, right? And
Yeah.
if you don't click that, then you don't get the sound.
There you go.
So now let me start it. And this time is the charm, right?
Soul
Yes.
is an enchanted boat,
Can you hear it?
Yes.
which like a sleeping swan doth float upon the silver waves of thy sweet singing. And thine doth like an angel sit beside a helm conducting it, whilst all the winds with melody are ringing. It seems to float ever, forever upon that many winding river, between mountains, woods, abysses, a paradise of wildernesses. Till like one in slumber bound, born to the ocean, I float down around into a sea profound of ever-spreading sound. Meanwhile thy spirit lifts its pinions in music's most serene dominions, catching the winds that fan that happy heaven. And we sail on, away, afar, without a course, without a star, but by the instinct of sweet music driven, till through Elysian garden islets, by thee most beautiful of pilots, where never mortal pinnace glided, the boat of my desire is guided. Realms where the air we breathe is love, which in the winds and on the waves doth move, harmonizing this earth with what we feel above. We have passed ages' icy caves, and manhood's dark and tossing waves, and youth's smooth ocean smiling to betray. Beyond the glassy gulfs we flee of shadowed peopled infancy, through death and birth, to a diviner day. A paradise of vaulted bowers, lit by downward gazing flowers, and watery paths that wind between wildernesses calm and green, peopled by shapes too bright to see, and rest, having beheld, somewhat like thee, which walk upon the sea and chant melodiously.
Okay, so now I'm going to stop that share and go back to the PowerPoint, hopefully. Yep, okay. So, share screen. Okay, and now for the last slide, let's see if they'll go.
So I was
I've been
thinking,
looking at.
No. I wanted it to. just have one more slide, and it's technically. There.
Is everything okay?
Yep, I'm just trying to get up the last slide, which is here. Okay. Now this one, I love this painting of Prometheus Unbound. And here is the YouTube. So I think what I'll just do is embedding videos, no easy feat, right?
Yeah.
So let's do it this way. YouTube.
I think you're sharing just your presentation and not your screen again.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to do that right now.
Okay.
Okay. I had to open it. I'm opening it right up into YouTube, and just sit back and relax and use your imagination for this one and enjoy. We're back. Hey, Jonathan, can you hear me?
Yeah,
So what did you think?
beautiful.
Yeah.
You should read the comments here.
Oh, yeah.
Did you see them?
I didn't want to distract. Okay, thank you for the invitation. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, everybody.
Well,
That was great.
what do you think about that one about listening to the poem, presumably from Vincent Price reading? We can feel the journey of 18 million years. Have any
Wow.
thoughts on that?
Yes, it is an evolutionary process, right? And the Titans would be, right? Because we have the rounds and the races. So, we talk about that evolutionary process. So it's a big cycle, right? With Prometheus and the Titans. And then Manus, the lighting of Manus, right? That they talk about in the Secret Doctrine. And it's such a glimpse into that spiritual pilgrimage that's been documented, in India, what we're studying through Theosophy, through the Greeks, through all over. You can see snippets of that same story. It was so clever how HPB was able to see it too, and transmit that. The idea of the macrocosm and the microcosm, and our journey, and our journey. And I don't know what we would add. I mean, 200 years ago, Shelley was opposed to servitude, because of all the European monarchies, et cetera, et cetera. And then
anyone else here?
I'm here.
I'm here.
Yeah.
Maybe
One of the things that when listening to the song, one can feel will and fohat and thought moving together through space and time in that song.
the one that we just saw.
Yes.
With that incredible orchestrated, momentous kind of building and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, you can feel it in your heart, that will, that momentum, that motion. It's just so powerful.
The adamantine will, as I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll hope that Helena will
Get
fix
back
whatever
to us.
happened there, get back to us, right? So
one of the students of Theosophy a long time ago said something from Prometheus. I'm not sure where from, but she said that Prometheus said, I knew it was going to be difficult. I just didn't realize it would be so painful.
Wow.
Which I thought was interesting. What do you think that brings to mind?
Body.
Wow, that's a.
There's going to be pain.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Helena's going to be trying to get back in, everybody. So she's trying to reconnect now.
Thank you, Gene. So Laura had that question. I think an incredible question, because there is that in the poetry that he well foreknew, he well knew what was going to happen. It wasn't just like, let's just see what happens if we give fire to mankind and bring the activity of mind to humanity. let's just see what would happen. He knew that something drastic was going to happen. But, oh, here comes Helena, who can answer the question.
Great.
Do you think HPB knew what was going to happen to her and that she knew how hard it was going to be?
Helena, welcome back, Helena. Look, while we were waiting for you to come back, sorry about that happening, Laura asked a question. Laura, do you mind asking that question again? That's such a powerful question.
I heard from a student a long time ago a quote from Prometheus, and she said, Prometheus said, I knew it was going to be difficult. I just didn't realize it'd be so painful.
Yeah, that's a wonderful comment, and I'm sure at some point in our incarnation we think the same thing too. I mean, this is a little bit painful, and also when you think about the masters and the adepts, and Jesus, and because this is really a drama about redemption, isn't it? Universally as well as personally. And so Prometheus is compassionate. And because he was compassionate, he's punished. So we don't take to compassionate, loving people very well, do we? We think that they're weak, right? Yeah. We often perceive teachers know this in the classroom. There's this idea that being willful and using your brute force and being aggressive and dog eat dog. We can relate to that a little bit better. But when we see someone being kind, and I think that especially refers to today on some level. But we all do that, and meanwhile, when these teachers and masters and redeemers come, they take on a cross. They take, they have a heavy load. So in Prometheus Bound, so here's this vulture devouring his liver. And the liver, if you look at all, the many different functions that the liver plays, it purifies the blood. It also helps with elimination. And then, very related to the blood, it also has portals. Jean can correct me with the anatomy and physiology. There are portals to the heart from the liver, and also from the blood returning. So there's a filtration system there. And it's not just what we eat, right? It's what we think. It's the emotions that we have with every act and thought and word and deed. We're imparting an impression from all these different parts of our being on ourselves as well. And the liver balances that out. So a sick liver tells us, right, that what are we putting into our system? Garbage in, garbage out, right? Very, very important. And then as you progress through into Prometheus Unbound, in Shelley's poem, Asia falls in love with him. And for Shelley, this was really important. So you see that Eros, that they talk about in the Secret Doctrine, the whole idea of spiritual love, of divine love, and how it causes with Asia comes the promise of love to Prometheus, and the curse is broken. And then they enter into a euphoric fourth act where they're really in Devachan, they're in heaven. It's very, very joyous. So it ends on a very upbeat note. So you see this transformation and the elevation taking place in each of us potentially. And compassionate people, Ramos says, can be accused of trying to play God. Oh, yeah, you get slaughtered for being a nice person or a good person. You really get hung in the rafters for it. So as theosophists, when we embrace universal brotherhood, I guess we can end up in the same situation as Prometheus is, and not be appreciated for it. Maybe not initially, but eventually, right? Did other people have thoughts?
Jeff from Japan started to say something while you were dialing in. Jeff, did you want to continue with anything?
No, I was just going to say about Prometheus saying it was harder than he thought it was going to be. HPB had been shown by the master all the difficulties that she was going to face, and I wondered, Helen, what do you think? Did HPB maybe think the same thing when she actually was undergoing those difficulties?
Sure, HPB, the Buddha, right? You think of the Garden of Gethsemane, and these really intuitive, sensitive types, right? Because that's what we're talking about here, and the secret wisdom. Prometheus knew that Jupiter was going to be deposed. And he knew how that was going to happen, but he didn't share that, with Jupiter. Because he even had compassion for Jupiter, who was torturing him and setting him up in all this. So he was full of compassion. He was coming from that place. And so perhaps that's the message for this round and this race in our evolutionary progression, in this cycle. I mean, Jesus apparently was told this, don't do it in India, don't do it. He did it anyway. So he knew what was coming and he did it anyway because he saw that was the next right step in our evolutionary progress, just the way that Prometheus saw that ultimately, giving the gift of fire, wisdom, the sciences, art, etc., and love, universal love, but the spiritual divine love, that the end of the play would work itself out. So he made a tremendous sacrifice because he knew where it was going to take him. But he took that on, he accepted that, and we do that, each of us in our own way. I was thinking of the reference, was it in the key? I thought it was in the key, I was looking for it, where HPB talks about, the soul being like a bird in a gilded cage, and our soul takes on our bodies to work out our karma, to learn, to grow, so it's a gift. Life is a gift. And there are lessons to be learned, and there's a price to be paid. And thank you, Anthony, for yes, and Hercules, right? Hercules is the one who frees Prometheus from his chains. So it does take a Herculean type of effort, but it works out in the end. And I just have to say, in that last song, Monica, I was thinking of you because that woman's voice, right? Oh, that really operatic voice.
Yes, incredible. And she really brought, how do I say it? The high stakes of the situation. She made that such an intense thing at the forefront. You could not help but feel it. I want to ask a question because I don't quite understand the Jupiter aspect of this. Could you talk a little bit about that? Because I have been given the understanding through other paths that Jupiter is our guru. And so I'm not quite clear about the theosophical take on it, as well as what it means in this Prometheus story. So could you give me some daylight here, my sister?
Oh, well, I think Gene could do a better job. Did he leave already? He's hiding. That's okay. And
I'm going to let you take that one.
Oh, thanks a lot, Jupiter. Well, Jupiter is, you might say, at least when I was thinking about it. Now, father, mother, if you think of the first fundamental principle, that she enunciates in the Secret Doctrine, she talks about one immutable principle, and then goes on to say that it has two aspects to itself. And she talks about space and matter, so spirit and matter, etc. And once you enter into life, right, onto the physical plane, you become dual upon incarnation, right? So we have, in Jupiter, I feel that early on in the story, he represents the more material, masculine energy. But then over the course of the play, and I think Shelley sees this and does this with Asia and introducing romantic love, now we're balancing out with the sacred feminine. So in the course of the play, there's an integration because Jupiter at the beginning is not balanced out by the feminine aspect. So Asia, and when you think about Asian philosophies and religions, Kuan Yin, you see that they had a fuller picture on some level. That with Avalokiteshvara, it's male and female, right? Just the way HPB talks about it, in the early pages of the first fundamental. But ultimately, of course, it's beyond that. But we have that in us, in the left and right hemisphere of our brain, in our physical body, and then Manas, the great elevator, if you want, that connects us to our soul or divine and immortal nature. So you see that we are composite beings. We have more than one aspect to ourselves, but we don't think about that. If we live consciously, we do. But most of us, until we have some kind of awakening. Ramu says, by the way, moon is a male god in Indian mythology. Thank you, Ramu. So I hope that helped a little bit.
It does. Thank you.
Yes. Judy has a hand raised. Judy Saltzman, I think.
Judy, hi. Is she muted? Judy, I can't hear you. We can't hear you. Oh.
Where'd she go?
Well, she's working on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't so Jupiter in this context is related to Zeus, who I think even is related, and this is where Ramu can help, to Indra. In other words, the king of the gods. And so you have like the main administrator of the system, you could say. And it's a working system, but then Zeus is getting kind of disgusted with humanity, which is kind of a sloppy venture, not sloppy, but not a smoothly running system here. You know, just a lot of waywardness. But so then you have, but Prometheus, who can see ahead, he sees the potential in humanity, right? And isn't that a distinction between Prometheus and Jupiter, I guess, in this context? Jupiter is so mysterious, though.
Ramu said in the chat, Jupiter can be vengeful and vindictive. It is said that the moon is the disciple of the Jupiter. The moon, Chandra, used to go to the Jupiter for his education. Chandra was very handsome. Hence, Tara, the wife of the Jupiter, got infatuated by the personality of the moon. Hence, Tara and Moon developed illicit relationship. As a result, the planet Mercury took birth. Mercury, communication. The planet Jupiter got angry with this and cursed Mercury to be a eunuch. That is why the planet Mercury is called a eunuch planet. So, you know, when you think of the influence of these myths, because you wonder, but there are comic books now, you know, that recreate Prometheus Unbound. There's a Japanese comic series that's very popular with the kids that's running Prometheus Unbound. Then you have someone today like, I was thinking of those interviews that Bill Moyers did, right, with Joseph Campbell.
Yep.
So you think about heroes. And when I was talking to Odin, he said the Prometheus series reminds him of that sacred tribe of heroes, the elder brothers who watch over us. You know, and to him, that's what this Promethean story is really about. And the sacrifice that they make, you know, for our sake, just the way that Prometheus made for humanity. And so it's a divine process that's in motion all the time. And without that protection, and he says he has full faith always that the masters are working. They're taking, without interfering in our karma, you know, they're letting it play out. You know, they're not going to be like Jupiter and say, those bad teenagers called humanity, I'm done. You know, he doesn't walk away from it. He brings out Prometheus. I always think of pro for me. Theus is a god. So Prometheus is is summing up the divine nature in us, as opposed to, right, you know, another part of our nature that would just give up or quit or, you know, crumple up the paper and toss it in the garbage because we made a mistake and are stuck in our perfectionism. It's a journey. You know, it's a journey, and Prometheus realizes that Zeus is you know, it's the fed up kind of you know, god that he is, and the moon and the memories, etc. I was thinking today about memories, and memories are the kinds of things that you know, what are they formed from? You know, Manas, when we're talking about Patanjali's, you know, it says you're going to have memories cropping up. And that's sort of the essence of our karma, you know, of our skandhas, you know, that are coming up for us and saying, yeah, those people that you knew before, you'll be reconnected with them in the future. You know, your love, the love holds it all together. You know, it gives that energy, that magnetic glue, you know, karmically, so that we can walk confidently and with faith, knowing that we have got the scheme of things under our belt. You know, and what we have to do is to get into that chariot, right? And let our divine nature be connected to that, strive for that connection, and it will be taken care of. So, Jonathan, we're over. It's 8:45. I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's time to quit. Did Judy come? I mean, would you take Judy's question, or if
she was able?
She's back. good.
She's back.
Back in the meeting.
Oh, we can hear you now. Yeah, love to hear from you.
I want to say that the Jupiter in Prometheus Unbound isn't like the Palatine Zeus, the creator. He represents all the tyrannical aspects of human nature and ultivity of those people who want to say, oh, well, you know, let the great ruler rule, or Jesus already died for us, or let's just see what happens. And they don't want to move forward with them on us. So I think, at least allegorically, that's what Zeus represents, that aspect of human nature. You know, let God do it kind of attitude.
Let God do it.
Yeah.
And with Prometheus, I think we also think about, I mean, if we were going to write the third part of the trilogy, you know, I think, you know, the tyranny, you know, we're opposed to tyranny, you know, freedom of the spirit, but we might think of maybe we've reached a point where we've gone too far, you know, with self-reliance, and too far with individuation, and we need to connect, you know, with that eros, with Asia, you know, with love, and come from a compassionate point. I think that's something maybe that would, for our era, because we have the you know, they had the industrial revolution responding to the technological revolution, you know, that we're all a part of. There are gifts that come with that, like we can come together, but there's also that loss of the human connection, of connecting to each other. And it's that connection, you know, which will ensure our spiritual evolution. So thank you, Judy. I'm so glad to have heard from you and that we could get in. And so what's the next? Well, Jonathan's got a great class in San Diego on Sunday mornings.
Not until
right?
Not until September.
Oh, so he's
what we're doing right now is the Gita. So
you're doing the Gita on Fridays in San Diego, and then
if you want to come to our Gita class, you're welcome to.
Yes.
Just I don't know how to say it, but maybe reply to that email that you got. Yeah, isn't there a way, Truth, that they could just reply?
Yeah, if you just send an email and we'll add you to the other list.
What time is the Gita class on
It's at
Friday?
1 o'clock in California, so it'd be 4 o'clock you guys' time.
4 o'clock East Coast time, you know, and then a lot of people studying Patanjali's in Los Angeles and New York, and on the Zoom classes. Sunday, 6 o'clock Eastern, and then Monday, I think it's 12 o'clock Los Angeles time for Patanjali's, if you're interested. So all are welcome, and many blessings. I'm glad that you enjoyed it, and thank you for coming.
Helena, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Many blessings. All righty. Enjoy. See you. Bye-bye.